Hello, everyone. I am super excited. I am going to bring to you Erica Smith, who's running for Senate in North Carolina. Check this out. We'll be right back. Awesome, guys. So, welcome to another episode of Epic Understanding. And I have with me first Morris Katz. Welcome, Morris.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here and excited to be able to talk about the campaign a little bit.
It's awesome. So, formally, Morris actually is part of the campaign team for Erica. And so he has just been laying the groundwork, working really hard, getting everything going. You know what? I'm thinking about having him back because he has quite a interesting background. But for now, can you tell us, how did you get connected with Erica?
Well, so I met Senator Smith about a year and a half ago now, when she was running in 2020 for U.S. Senate. At the time,
Okay.
I was doing a series of candidate profiles for progressive candidates running across the country, Democrats running across the country, and Erica was one of the candidates I interviewed. And as I'm sure you know, interviewing people on a weekly basis, it's easy for people to start blending together, and you forget who you talk to. And I was struck by when you're interviewing someone special.
Wow.
And I was struck by Erica when we were interviewed. I thought, this is someone we need in the United States Senate. This is the kind of person who should be running for office. And so after that, we stayed in touch. And I think, like hundreds of thousands of people in North Carolina and a lot of people across the country, I was upset and disappointed that she wasn't able to win her primary last time. But we started staying in touch afterwards, talking, thinking about what it would maybe look like if she were to run again in 2022 for this seat that's open right now. And when she asked me to come on board, when she decided that she wanted to jump in this race, that wasn't an opportunity I could say no to.
Awesome. That's really beautiful. So you said you were struck by her immediately. What drew you to her? What's different about her?
What's different about her is that she's in it for the right reasons. And I know that sounds like that should be everyone who's in politics should be in it for the right reasons. But as we know, that's unfortunately not the reality. I think you see most people who go into politics tend to be people who want power or want fame or want to maintain a status quo that benefits them and their friends. and so she wanted to go and serve her community, serve people who are from communities like hers across North Carolina, had all the right intentions, and was willing to be a fighter for people. And that just, you can feel that, as you guys will see shortly.
Awesome. Now, she's not with us just yet. I'm going to sneak up a picture, and you can tell me a little bit. Check out this. Look at that community. Look, that's where she's from. That's so neat. Or how about this one?
Yep, there it is. Yeah, I can tell. Actually, I went to, for the first time about a few weeks ago, to the farm. Her family still lives on where those photos are. Is her family farm where she grew up, still lives there. I was taken to the farm the first time a few weeks ago. She gave me the tour. I'm a city boy myself, so it was quite the experience. Learned a lot, but I think that drives home the point, right? How many people do we have in the U.S. Senate right now who grew up on a family farm? Not many.
not many. And then, playing with her friends and her family, just good old hometown fun. Um, nothing out of the ordinary. It's just the kind of things that happen at the kitchen table that everybody experiences. And I think, you know, that's what we're going to learn about her and really get excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think.
Look who's here. Hello.
Hey, hello. How are you? Okay.
We are fantastic. It is awesome to have you on.
So glad to be here. I am so happy about meeting you. And I've heard so many wonderful things, and so glad to be here.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So Morris was just chit-chatting with us about how he came to get to know you. Do you want to tell us anything fun about Morris before he gets out of here? Tell us a secret about him. Tell us a secret.
Well, I can tell you that he is becoming an honorary Aggie. I'm a graduate of North Carolina A&T State University, and he has done so much work about support for HBCUs. We were like, we're going to have to give him a T-shirt and just adopt him.
All right.
Family, but Morris is amazing. He is just so gifted. I feel like I gave birth to him because he reads my mind. He's just been amazing energy to this campaign. He gives us life. So happy to have him as a part of Team Erica.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. I was telling him that I might have to interview him one day. He told me about his experience working on so many different national campaigns, which I think is amazing. So great work, Morris. I'll let you get out of here and I'll bend your ear another time.
Thank you. That sounds good. Yeah, I know. I absolutely appreciate it, Senator Smith, and I'm feeling that, the Aggie pride. And I will, after working for you, never work for a candidate who's not a Delta.
Oh my goodness. You have trained him well. Check him out. Yes. All right. Bye-bye for now. Well, I am honored.
I am honored to meet you. Honored to have this discussion. I am ready.
Yes. Okay. Your sound is a little down. Do me a favor and turn yourself up.
Okay.
So I can hear you and the audience can hear you.
Good.
Not quite, but it's a little bit better. It's a little bit better. Your volume, or maybe bring your mic closer to you. Okay. What do you think?
I might need to bring the mic closer because
I think that's better. Yeah, we're getting there. That's much better.
Okay. Is this good?
Okay, that's much better. The sound is much better. Awesome. So I just want to thank you for spending time with me and really showing us your heart, because everybody's talking about the issues. The issues are awesome, and we want to talk about the issues. But guess what? If the person who's handling the issues is not a quality person, then we get poor outcomes.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And so there's one thing to talk about issues, but there's another thing to have lived those issues and had to navigate those issues. And so we really do need more elected officials whose lived experiences mirror the experiences of the vast majority of Americans who are most impacted by the policies that are passed in Washington, D.C.
Absolutely. And I love the fact we were talking about the fact that you're from a family farm.
Yes. Grew up on the family farm. Oh my gosh. Taught me hard work. We used to have to wake up. We would say from can't see in the morning to can't see at night. We would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, pick cucumbers most of the day, and then go to the farmer's market and, get a little bit of money for that and have to divide it with my, it's 6 of us in my family with my parents. And so just the work ethic and just what it instilled in me to use your available resources to build a better way of life for yourself, for your family, for your community.
Awesome. So you just said it's the work ethic, but I'm curious to draw that out a little bit more. How does being a North Carolina farm girl help you be a leader today?
Okay, it gives you a fundamental understanding of why we have to fight so hard for clean air and for clean water to be able to give this next generation a sustainable planet. And so it has motivated me to fight for environmental issues, to fight against environmental discrimination, environmental racism. As we know, Black and Brown people. 40% of those people who live within a 1 mile radius of toxic dump sites are Black and Brown people. Being growing up on a farm just taught me that I have a responsibility to make sure that my neighbor is okay. When we would, as tired as we got, Erica, as tired as we were on the family farm, we were not allowed to leave the field if our
Okay.
neighbor had not finished harvesting their field. And so
Wow.
we would have to not only be responsible for ourselves, but we had to learn responsibility to others. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and making sure that that principle is carried out, I am concerned about my neighbor. While I may not have to struggle with a livable wage, my neighbor does. And my
Mm-hmm.
neighbor cannot pay all of their bills off of $7.25 an hour. My neighbor has to get 3 or 4 jobs just to make ends meet. I myself had to get a part-time job just to be able to afford life-saving medical care and medical equipment for my son.
And you want to know something? I have in my own way, I have conservative ideas and I have what someone would call liberal ideas. But particularly when it comes to the idea of having a living wage, it just makes sense to me because if a person who is working 40 hours a week cannot afford to pay their bill, government funds, that means I think you're frozen. Oh, she's frozen, but I'll go ahead.
Okay, what about now? Are we good?
Hi there. We had a
Okay.
hiccup. Okay.
Okay. This is why I fight so hard for universal broadband. Broadband is not a luxury; it is a utility, and it should be free.
Yes, it is a necessity. It is, it is, it is. But I will, so I'm not sure where the family heard me leave off, but I was saying that I have conservative ideas and what one would say liberal ideas, but it really is this. If someone doesn't, to me, this is just logic. It doesn't have a political label. If I if I work 40 hours a week and I still can't make a living wage, and that means that I have to apply for subsidies, okay, then I'm not making enough money, and that means I'm not being paid enough money. So who's benefiting from that actual government subsidy? You might think it is me, the person receiving it, but in actuality, it is the corporate entity because they are getting to keep the money that they should be paying me. So to me, that is corporate welfare. Please
Yes.
pay your people so I don't have to. Please and thank you.
Absolutely. Please and thank you. And so, I do a lot of graduation speeches, and I'm going to tell you, Coach Love, the one graduation speech that I was so floored by the testimony of the student who was selected to give the student message. I was just like, wow, I don't even know if I can get through my speech. This young lady, it was for a program that trains solar panel maintenance and installation technicians.
Mm-hmm.
And so this program, there were 97 graduates in that class, and it was
Mm-hmm.
put on by this Solar Energy Center for Energy Education. And
Mm-hmm.
so there were 97 graduates. Of those 97 graduates, they ranged in age from 18 to 64 years old. For
Mm-hmm.
more than 50% of those graduates, that was the first time they had ever graduated from anything in their lives, with
Wow.
school, college, community college, or any program. It's the first time they ever graduated.
Mm-hmm.
There was a student testimony, and she talked about how she had worked 3 jobs. She would get up in the morning. She would get her children up at 7 o'clock. Once they were off to school, she would go to her first job at 8 o'clock. She would work
Mhm.
until 2 o'clock. She would get home. She would let them get off the school bus. She would go to her second job at 4 o'clock p.m. She would work until 10 o'clock at night, come home, relieve her mother, make sure her mother would watch her kids, and then she worked the 12 midnight shift until 6 o'clock in the morning, where she would go home. And she had 3 children, and she said she knew enough was enough when she could not tell her youngest 2 children apart. And she said one of them had grown so much while she was working 3 part-time jobs to be able to care for one of them who was medically fragile, but also the bills to keep a roof over their head, as a single mom. And she said graduating, 80%, 85% of the graduates by the day of graduation had a job offer for a good paying job. She went from making $7 and $6 an hour on those 3 jobs to making $21 an hour from one job that she worked 9 hours a day. And so she said it not only changed her life, but it changed the life of her family and the entire
Absolutely.
and lifting themselves out of poverty. So if you can pay a good paying job, then you will have people who, paying job will solve a multitude of problems. I'll be able to afford, housing. I'll be able to afford the necessities, basic food and necessities that my children need, healthcare and everything else. But we have to get a fundamental understanding, and that's what the farm taught me too. As coming from a biblical family, if a man doesn't work, a man doesn't eat. But many people are working and still cannot afford life-saving healthcare. So we really need to be better at building systems of equity and a just society by affording basic human rights of healthcare, universal broadband, and a livable wage.
Absolutely. You know what? I can't get enough of this livable wage conversation, because there's a lot of challenges to it, where there's a narrative out there, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but you didn't tell me that you was going to cut off my boots why while you were doing it, you know.
Right.
And so where I'm going with that is this: there are some states, the governors are taking away the subsidy that the federal government is giving for unemployment.
Yes. And so that is the tragedy. Well, some people are claiming that there is a worker shortage because people would rather stay at home and collect unemployment. If anyone thinks that unemployment compensation of $1,000 a month is enough to make somebody retire, they
Mm-hmm.
are woefully misled and confused.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina has one of the stingiest unemployment compensations. It went from 19 weeks to 12 weeks, and
Mm-hmm.
the weekly compensation went down from 400 to $250. And so that's $1,000. How can you support a family of four for $1,000? If your rent is 800, then
Mm-hmm.
how do you buy food? How do you buy anything else? And so we also faced a crisis in North Carolina where the federal food program, the SNAP program, even though the state was not going to be able to save a dime by cutting the benefits to hungry children and hungry families through the food nutrition program, they still cut the federal benefits because they just wanted to be mean spirited. And so that's why I say when we have politicians who have gotten to Washington, D.C., and have become far removed from the struggle of everyday, hardworking Americans, it is
Mm-hmm.
time for us to change the face of representation and start getting people who have had to navigate real problems and find real solutions to these big problems that people are facing.
So, how do you speak to the idea that we shouldn't raise the minimum wage because of inflation? What's your thought on that?
If the minimum wage was even indexed with inflation, it would be somewhere around $22. So that's to me, that's a ridiculous notion. We
I
need
love that answer. I have to tell you, I love it. I love it.
right.
Because
$15 is the floor. It is the floor. And a loaf of bread doesn't cost me today what it cost me 10 years ago. I mean,
Mhm,
gas doesn't even cost me today. When I was born, gas was 75 cents a gallon. And
mhm.
now, gas is 2.75, 3.75, depending on where you are in this country. So it's ridiculous not to index the minimum wage with inflation, but definitely it should be around $22. And the capacity for the minimum wage to address poverty, you will lift. That's why I'm such a big supporter of Bishop William J. Barber, who
Mhm.
done the analysis and shown that 39 million people alone will be lifted out of poverty, um, lifted out of the federal poverty wage level, just by passing a $15 an hour minimum wage. We did that in North Carolina. I joined in colleagues pushing for that, and we were able to offer $15 hour minimum wage to our correction officers, and it just made
Mhm.
a difference in public safety and being able to have our prisons properly staffed. We want to do that for all state employees. It definitely should be done. You already take a less than market wage by taking on some of these state jobs, but I think it's really important that we respect the dignity of work. And for workers, as a union member, I'm a former union member. I've been a union member on every job that I've worked. I think it is important to protect the right to organize and
Mhm.
to have that opportunity to bargain for better employment and better benefits.
Oh my God, Erica, this subject is just so juicy. I cannot get enough of it. So I'm just going to ask you one more question because I need to connect the dots for our people how minimum wage actually connects to crime. Okay, let's take the young lady that worked that she it was the first place she graduated from. Okay.
Mhm.
What was her? Do you have a name? Let's call her Judy. Okay.
Let's call her Judy. And
Okay.
so she was working three minimum wage jobs that did not pay her what one job, working,
Mm-hmm.
10 hours a day so she could have some time with her family. It changed her life.
It changed her life, but it also changed her children's life in this
Mhm.
way. If she couldn't recognize her kids, she couldn't have been raising them.
Thank you.
She couldn't have been raising them. She couldn't have been teaching. She couldn't have been helping them with their homework. Okay. And she couldn't have been really instilling them into them value, humanity, civility. She couldn't have been doing that. They were just passing one another in the night, maybe grabbing a burger and staring at the TV, picking up whatever is going to be picked up, let alone the predators that are out in the streets trying to give the child the one thing it needs, which is significance and attention.
Yes. And so we know the problem with latchkey children and what has happened even with our generation. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we kind of understand, we have people, we have families with a working mother and father, and they
Mm-hmm.
still have to work enormous hours just to be able to afford, everyday what they resources that their families need. I look at when I was working as an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
I had two younger sons at the time. One of them was $150. No, yeah, $150 a week. The other one was $160 a week because he wasn't potty trained. He was in diapers. And so I look at what I spent. I spent $1,100 a month. Now, this was 1995, 1996. So this was
Mm-hmm.
some time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Spending $1,100 a month just so I could go to work. And so
Absolutely.
when you're looking at the untenable, untenable struggles that we put working families through, we
Mm,
need a better understanding of how to promote economic opportunities, development, and growth across the board. When you look at, a mother who has to work that many jobs just to make ends meet, and that impacts the generations by not being able to have that nurturing that is so necessary and building, a whole child. And
mm.
that's no fault of the mother herself, because if she wasn't providing for her children, we would be talking junk. Society would be calling her everything but a child of God. But at the same
Absolutely.
time, we just really need to understand, as women are in the workforce, we're 52% of the workforce now, we should have long done something about childcare and looking at ways that we can make that more manageable. You look at the number of women who have had to exit the workforce just in the last year because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we definitely need some worker reforms. And that's why I'm such a firm supporter of the PRO Act.
That is just, oh my goodness. When I tell you delicious, oh, delicious. I can't help myself. All right. So I'm going to move on to the next area, and it is just those basic North Carolina values. What
Okay.
would you say North Carolina values are?
I would say North Carolina values are where we have this, our state motto is to be rather than to seem. And so, if we want to be that state where the weak grow strong and the strong grow great, that's our state song. Here's to the old North State. And so, one of the things that I celebrate about North Carolina values is that my neighbor matters. This
Mm,
is a place where we aspire to have opportunities for you to be able to achieve the limits, or exceed the limits of your God given talent, where it won't matter if you live in the rural East or the rural West or any of the parts in between, you will be able to achieve that American dream. So when I think about North Carolina values, I think about what it is to live in a state where you have 80 out of 100 rural counties, where
mhm.
you have a desire to close that rural urban divide, where we have a place where we want every child to receive the quality education, because North Carolina was one of the first states to include a quality public education as a part of our constitution, our state constitution, where everyone can be afforded a basic quality education so that they can become a productive citizen and achieve their every dream. So when I think about North Carolina values, that's what I think about.
Wow. So it's a rural place, but it does have some pockets of where it's a little bit more urban. And you're saying you want to bridge the gap between those two styles of living. What?
Yes. So one of the things, we have Mecklenburg County, where we have Charlotte, and Charlotte,
Okay.
the number two baking capital of the nation. It is a wonderful place of affluence and growth, but even our urban centers have their issues. They have their pockets of poverty. And so when I talk about closing that rural urban divide, as an engineer, I talk about re engineering our policies and our criteria so that they have higher and greater efficacy, where it will work just as well in the urban center as it works in the rural center. And
Hmm.
that's what I have spent 3 terms in the North Carolina Senate doing. We have 100 counties in North Carolina. 80 of them, as I said, are what we call Tier 1 and Tier 2. Tier 1 are our most economically distressed counties. And the 8 counties that I serve, they improved in their economic disparity, meaning they were less economically disparate after my tenure, because I worked really hard with my colleagues to have the type of investments in infrastructure, the incentives to promote business development and to recruit companies to come to the areas so that we can build the economy, partnering with the metro centers, with the
Hmm.
tier 3 counties, our 20 counties, including Raleigh, Wake County, and Durham and Durham County, and Guilford and Greensboro and Guilford County, and also Asheville and Buncombe County, and
Hmm.
Charlotte, Mecklenburg. Being able to have those partnerships where we can utilize the relationship of building capacity in our neighbor. It's all about how can I help my neighbor.
That's awesome. And what I'm hearing in your heart is that there is a narrative that, oh, if you live in an urban area, then your problems are somehow so much different than people who live in a rural area. But at the end of the day, everybody wants to put food on the table.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm. Everybody wants to be safe.
Yes.
And everybody wants to, grow and prosper.
So we all want the same thing. There are so many things that unite us than divide us. And so unfortunately, we live in a society that tries to divide us every way but Sunday. And
Mhm.
so it's so important to understand that, someone said it much better than me. They said a rising tide floats all boats. And so I
Absolutely.
can start that investment and looking at, everybody wants to a community that is safe.
Mhm.
Everybody wants a community where they can thrive, job
Mhm.
opportunities, educational opportunities. And so, we want what our neighbors want. And so let's roll up our sleeves. Let's work hard together. Let's tweak and engineer the policies so that we can have that achievement no matter what your zip code is.
That's awesome. I love that. So I'm going to ask this question about your family and your parents, but I'm really asking this question because I would bet that the problems that your parents had to solve span time. And so it is, what kind of problems did you see your parents try to solve when they were growing up?
Wow. Okay. So my dad was in the United States Air Force, and the
Uh-huh.
military was a way that he could provide for his family. It gave him great skills, and it met him where he was. And so, I have a fondness for service men and women who lay
Mhm.
down their lives every day. I'm not so happy about the challenges after you serve your country, and that there are not systems in place to really help you when you most need it. My dad was, he became very ill, and there were issues with healthcare that he did not have access to, and he had to solve those problems. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, still today, we have some of those same problems that,
Mhm.
my family, two generations later, are still trying to fight for. When I look at black farmers, my dad, he went in the red. Once he retired from the military, he tried to grow the family farm, and it was just a tough time in the late 80s. And so
Wow.
my parents worried about how they were going to feed six children, five girls.
Mhm.
They worried about how they were going to pay for college. It was a mail handler's union. So my dad, ultimately, after retiring from the military, he had to go get a second job at working for the United States Post Office. And so I have an identical twin sister. The only way to tell us apart is my mole. And
Aw.
so she and I have a sister 18 months older than me, and then another sister who is 4 years older than me. And we were all in college at the same time. And so my
Okay.
parents just could not afford it. And so it was a mail handlers union scholarship, local 305, that
Okay.
helped me, enabled me to go to North Carolina A&T State University, one of the strongest universities, public universities, graduating black engineers on every level, more than any other. So I have to throw in
There
that
you go.
A&T Aggie Pride. Got on my Aggie Pride button. But at any rate, my parents, really struggled with how they were going to make college affordable. Still today, we're fighting some of those same issues. And so when I look at the problems that they solved, they had the problem of really having to navigate the dynamics of growing up in the South, inspiring us and instilling in us as five girls. We had to work just as hard as the boys did on the farm. They
Mhm.
inspired us to approach society and believe that we could be anything we wanted to be. My dad, always told me, don't allow society to confine, define, refine you to what it wants you to be. You can be anything you want to be. That's why I played trombone instead of playing flute. I was determined, to break the envelope and
All right.
do everything that I wanted to do. So I look at those problems that they solved, and they truly taught us how to navigate, problem solve, and make ends meet.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. And I love the fact that your father fought for this country And you know what? You're just a wealth of riches. I mean, seriously, your dad fought for this country. You grew up a farm girl. Then you became engineer. You're a public servant. You're a teacher. And then you're a minister. Woo-wee! Erica, I'm
Yeah,
tired.
I told you. My mother was like, "Girl, if you want to do it, I'll support you every step of the way. Just go for it." And I always laugh because I talk about this. My mom was a seamstress. She made all of our clothes. She sewed for five girls, and we were the youngest girls. So I used to cry. I'm not gonna lie. I used to be like, "I want some designer jeans." They were Lee jeans, Gloria Vanderbilt, Jordache. And my mom said, "Okay, I'm gonna make you some designer jeans." And so she was able to buy some material. When I came home, she gave me my designer jeans. They were blue jean, light blue jean, and they had a star on the back. Oh, she said,
Oh,
I was like, "What kind of designer jeans are these?" I was too outdone. She said, "Baby, you're my star." And so
aw.
I laugh about that, but we just had such humble beginnings, but we had so much love. And the
Yeah.
way my mother just, made all of our clothes. I got my first store-bought suit when I was an intern in
Mhm.
college, and I was able to be selected to go to Boeing in Seattle, Washington to work as an intern. And I bought my first suit, and I just thought I was something then, but nothing fit me as well as my tailor-made suits were that you would have to pay thousands of dollars for.
Yes.
Fit me to a T. And so I'm just so inspired by what my parents instilled in us and how that inspired me to be a public servant, because it's really about serving people and building a better world, building a
Mhm.
better community than you found it.
Now, I've heard a little bit about your ministry, girl, and and how you've been helping women. Tell me about that.
Well, I've always come from a social justice ministry.
Mhm.
I'm all about social justice, women's advocacy, and many times in the Hebrew Bible, women had second-class citizenship, and so
Mhm.
for me, that translates into fighting for equal pay for equal work, opening
Mhm.
up opportunities. Because I remember the daughters of Zelophehad when
Yes.
for women, and they were told that they were going to be disinherited because they were not men. And
Right.
that was one of the biblical stories that certainly inspired me, being that it was five girls and one boy in my family. And, when the boy had to be the youngest, my baby brother, we loved him to death. We've spoiled him. But I've always fought for equity.
Mhm.
For me, that is gender equity, it's race equity.
Mhm.
It informs my fight for social justice, to make
Mhm.
sure that we are not continuing to disenfranchise people. I
Mhm.
apply it with my engineering degree, looking at computer algorithms and AI, artificial intelligence,
Mhm.
and how there are disenfranchising components of that, in redlining, and how we have higher loan amounts, the inequity in our banking that
Mhm.
is perpetuated on Black and Brown people, inequities in pay, the income inequality, all of that. There are components of that social justice fight and social justice advocacy. So I believe that ministry for me has been the way that I have been able to advance justice and the fight for equality in everyday. Because I firmly believe we don't have to wait until the after while. We can have that equality right here and right now if we pull together and we fight for it, and we, watch and pray. That means don't pray and watch what happens. That means you got to put some action with it. And so, with this social justice movement that we saw, Jesus went to the marginalized communities. So, it's about approaching community building from that same aspect and using my Judeo Christian faith heritage to inform me on how we need to have equality among all of us, because God made us equal.
Absolutely. And for the life of me, I do not understand why is it that you hire two people to do the same job, but because one is a woman, you instantly get to pay them less. What is this?
What? And look, but check this out. Because I was like, okay, Black women earn 62 cents on the dollar of a white male. Latino women earn 57 cents on the dollar of a white male, and Native American women earn 52 cents. And so women on average earn 82 cents on the dollar when you include white and Asian women. And you look at it, you're like, wow, they don't tax me at 62
What?
cents on the dollar. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be about fairness, why are you paying me less, but you're taxing me at the same rate? It's just not fair. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous not to be paid equal pay for equal work because you don't have a certain anatomy or you don't have a certain skin tone, because even Black men don't earn what white men earn on the dollar. So that has been a part of my social justice fight. Definitely looking at the ways that we can stop this disenfranchisement, in this systemic discrimination that is perpetuating generational poverty, particularly for Black and Brown communities.
And then once again, I will tie this in. For me, it is the bigger picture, because if you're going to pay that, if you're going to basically chop off 40% of that person's salary or 50% of that person's salary, what that means is that they're able to do less for that child. They're able to keep that child.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank
They
you.
can't educate them as well. They can't keep them as safe. They can't invest in them as much, and they cannot nurture their talent as much. And so then when you produce a child who is not reaching their full potential, now you're scratching your head. Come on.
I know. So, I mean, you get it and I get it. And so it's not until we have representative democracy
Mm-hmm.
that we are able to advance those policies and initiatives, because people who are in places of privilege, they don't have an understanding of it. That's why it took a Representative Lauren Underwood and a Representative Ayanna Presley and Representative Alma Adams to talk
Mm-hmm.
about Black women's maternal mortality rates and how
Mm-hmm.
they are worse than developing countries, and how
Mm-hmm.
it's extremely high in North Carolina. And me
Mm-hmm.
as a Black woman, I too experienced those threats to healthcare during
Mm-hmm.
my maternity years. And when we have, that representative democracy and that seat at the table, those seats at the table, because I'm gonna stop saying seat. We need more than one seat. When we have
Mm-hmm.
seats at the table, we start addressing those inequities in a different way that comes from a lived experience. And it's
Mm-hmm.
lived experiences that empower you to advance those policies that promote equity.
Mm-hmm. And Erica, when I tell you, not only do I want you to have a seat at the table, but I want you to have a voice in the room, and not the one that gets permission, but the one that speaks up at will. That's what I want.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute. I just have to go to Maxine Waters 1 second. Reclaiming my time.
Look, and we cannot yield not one more second until we have equality, until we have Medicare for all, until we have a Green New Deal that promotes environmental justice. And,
Mm-hmm.
we have to fight for that. And we cannot yield until we get it. We cannot yield. Black women, in North Carolina and across this nation, we've been the most faithful voting bloc, particularly for the Democratic Party. And we've carried a lot of water. And too often we're seen as the base of the party and the workers of the party, but not often the face of the party. And it is
Mm-hmm.
time to start supporting those who have supported you. And looking at that, we do need that representation. It makes no sense that we've only had 2 Black women to serve in the United States Senate in the last 242 years. And maybe we can only count the last 100 when women were able to serve because we were finally able to vote. But when you look at that, it doesn't make any sense. Only 2 Black women.
It's ridiculous.
It's
Now
ridiculous.
let's connect this dot for the people. These dots for the people, in case they missed it. If Black women are represented fairly, everybody ends up being represented fairly. If whatever you do to Black people ultimately hurts any marginalized community, specifically the poor,
Yeah,
specifically the
yeah,
poor, because sometimes when people hear um, people of color talking about issues, concerns, frustrations. I'll even take voter ID. All right, I'll take voter ID. And people often talk about this as if it is a Black issue. Well, it is a Black issue, but it is a national issue because who has challenges getting IDs? I'm going to tell you, if you live in a rural community and the place for you to get your ID is God knows how long, far away.
With no public transportation.
Yes, okay, say it again. With no public transportation, that is affecting you, okay? People who are older adults.
Yes.
I'll tell you why. Because oftentimes their driver's license goes expired. So now they need a state ID. Well, nobody's coming to get them. And it's been, oh my God, well, I haven't driven in years and now it's time to vote and I got to get an ID to do this. Okay. So how is that working? It has nothing to do with just being Black or brown. When these issues pop up and they're trying to suppress voting, they are suppressing the vote of the poor. So if you are poor and you just so happen to be white, anything that is done to a Black or brown person is going to affect you. Don't think it won't. The color of your skin is not going to protect you.
That's
I just needed to say that.
I'm glad you said that. And I love two quotes: Martin Luther King and "Justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere," and Anna Julia Cooper that said, "When and where I enter, I take the entire nation with me," because you're taking the entire Black race with you. And so those issues that if you improve them for Black women, you improve them for all women. And so there is a shared commonality between my struggle and your struggle. They are inextricably bound, as Martin Luther King would say. And so, helping you helps me. It helps all of us.
Absolutely. I want to talk about two issues that are connected, but it's particularly important to people in rural communities because they were affected by it.
Okay.
It is the opioid crisis. It is a crisis, and how that connects to health care. Okay, because if you don't have health care, and then or you have bad health care and you've gotten hooked on a prescription drug because you had a bad back or whatever, and now you're going to look for street pain killers, you're all of a sudden hooked on something toxic for you.
Hooked on something toxic, and then you're also contributing to crime. And so it has definitely a community safety component to it as well. Wilmington, North Carolina was at one point the opioid capital of the nation. And we certainly have supported so much legislation to try to address that opioid crisis. When we look at the impact it has on children and families and on poverty, so one of the things that we saw is that you've got to have some decriminalization components so that people can get the help that they need for substance abuse, and criminalizing them, because that only leads to worse problems and exacerbates it. And so one of the things that I have noted is that we have had a more compassionate approach to the opioid crisis. It wasn't around when it was crack cocaine in our community long before. And you look at the demographic that is impacted by the opioid crisis. Let's just true and factual. It started out, it was more middle class. It was women, but now, because we have not done enough to eradicate it, now it's affecting all walks of life. High poverty communities, affluent communities, and really have to get a hold and harness some things that we need to do in criminal justice reforms to be able to address the opioid crisis, but as well in our public safety, providing more mental health appropriations and treatment, and looking at medicinal marijuana, because that can help with dealing with some of the the issues with providing detoxification and being able to get people the substance treatment and the policy to get them from not being addicted to opioids. Medical reforms, because it was the overprescribing of painkillers.
Mm-hmm.
The medical industry being able to go, unleashed these extraordinary profits that were made by the prescription drug companies who were invested in the misery economy of getting people hooked on painkillers and opioids. And so you look at what happened with our with cigarette smoking, and
Mm-hmm.
how now we had unprecedented claims and settlements to address the addiction of nicotine. And so we may need to look at and explore what we can do to get the health companies, to get the prescription drug companies invested in you, instead of taking all the profits out of the healthcare system, using those profits to address the opioid crisis that you created.
Absolutely. That was beautifully put. And I love the term misery economy.
Yeah.
That is so incredible. I think our nation needs to understand this. Whatever you allow to happen and to do to Black and brown people will then happen to poor people. And
Yeah.
it once it happens with poor people, it will catch fire in the middle class.
Yeah.
Thus, yes, that's simply the way it works. You cannot compartmentalize misery and believe that it is not going to affect the rest of the nation. It may
Yes.
take time.
You know what? You are onto this. You are stating this so well. And I am an avid reader, and Elie Wiesel is one of my favorites. And
Okay.
um he had a quote. They came to get my Roman Catholic sister. Oh, brother.
Ooh.
I didn't speak because I wasn't Roman Catholic. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they came to get my some other brother. I didn't speak because I wasn't that. They
Mm-hmm.
came to get my Jewish sister and brother, and I didn't speak because I wasn't Jewish. Then they came for me, and there was nobody left to speak for me. And so
Yes.
you embody that in what you just shared. We've got to stop trying to compartmentalize it and fight it in silos and say, oh, that's them. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
pertain to me. Because
Mm-hmm.
when it goes unchecked and you start allowing, what happens to the Black community, happen to the poor community, it's going to spill over and it's going to hit your community. It's going to hit your,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to hit your backyard. And so that's why we've got to solve these problems. Going back to what we said, it's about my neighbor too.
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. Oh my goodness, this has been so wonderful. I have one more question for you. Um, how has the pandemic changed the way you see the world?
Okay. That is a great question. First of all, the pandemic, what it did for me, it made me sit down and really analyze what we're doing, why we are doing it, how we're doing it, and how we can build a more just society, a more equitable healthcare system. When
Mhm.
I looked at the pandemic, before the pandemic, you know, no one could talk about on the campaign trail. I was one of the only candidates talking about Medicare for all. That was
Okay.
pandemic hit. And I am also, a firm follower of the theologian Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And Dr.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King Jr. talked about eradicating poverty. The best way to eradicate poverty is to confront it head on. And he talked about a guaranteed basic income. And so
Okay.
Andrew Yang and the Yang Gang was talking about that and building on Dr. King's Poor People's Movement and what Repairers of the Breach and Bishop Barber is doing now. I looked at that. Nobody could fathom the government giving us a monthly check until we
Okay.
started getting those monthly stimulus checks.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I look at what is possible. What is possible in this world now that we have gone through a pandemic? We've seen just how broken our healthcare system is. A
Yeah.
healthcare that prioritizes profits over people. After the
Mhm.
pandemic, we've seen just how unjust our economic systems are. When we look at the number of poor people who lost their jobs, those who had employer based health care, what good is employer based health care when you have lost your job? When we look
Say
at,
it again.
affordable housing, and you look at all of these people now who are facing evictions because they just don't have the money to hold on to the
Mhm,
residence. And
mhm,
so it has shown me just what is possible when we harness the political will to build back better. But in building back better, we got to build a more just society. We've got to confront income inequality. When you have food lines further than the eye can see, but yet you see millionaires and billionaires doubling and tripling their net worth in a pandemic. It has shown me what is possible when we come together and we push for candidates, and we push for policies, and we push for a bold agenda that is going to be a response, an appropriate response to the big problems that people are facing. So that's what the pandemic did for me. It made me more vigilant, it made me more vigorous, and it strengthened my vision to provide for the policies that will make this government work better for all of us, and
mhm.
not just the wealthy and the well connected.
All right. I'm just going to clap on that. I'm going to clap on that. And I'm going to say we need to dismiss with a country club healthcare ideas and vision. It's got to go.
It's got
Simple
to
as
go.
that.
It's
It's
got to
got
go.
to I'm not going to let you all the way up off the hook. Tell me about this. What's going on with this? What you doing? Did you see you? There you go. I mean, you wearing it. You got the hat on.
Look, we just planted a couple of weeks ago with my family. We all got out there. Listen, we still grow our own produce, and I am getting ready to look in going back into farming myself.
Okay.
Because I just learned so much during this pandemic. I had more time to get out there in the field, and I want to start supporting regenerative agriculture and looking at no till
Mm,
farming. And
yes.
that's a way to address the climate crisis. So, yep, you got to see me in my natural element. And I
Yes.
still love working on the farm because I love to eat and I love fresh fruit, fresh food, fresh vegetables, what we grow on the farm.
I love. Wait a minute. You got you. That's a pose right there. You got your. You got like it's like a
I got,
tool
it was
in your hand, hand on your head, and hand on your hip. Go on, girl.
I was talking to somebody. I was explaining to them. I said, "Yeah, my mom had no excuses for me. She said, I don't care that you're running statewide. You're gonna get out here in this field and do the work that you're supposed to
You know what? It takes a mama to pull our coattail.
do." Yes,
It
that's
takes a mama.
woo.
Wait a minute. Now stare at the screen for me because I got one more. Tell us about these days.
Okay. Oh,
Yes,
I
honey.
love that. Okay. Okay. So you saw my mom with all the children
Uh huh.
around her. And so I think one was with my dad. He was trying to hold all of the girls. And
Yeah.
you see me with a little Texas A&T shirt on. And so I already knew it was wrong colors, but it was still A&T. I was destined to go to A&T. I have so many family members who went to A&T, and we're playing on the swing. This was when we lived in Texas, when my dad was stationed at Reese Air Force Base. And
Hmm.
so I just remember just fond memories of growing up in that wholesome family, the hard work ethic. My siblings and I, three of us are engineers, two of us are educators, and I'm quasi both. And so just being able to be empowered to come from such humble beginnings, to grow up in poverty, to be so poor, but able to earn a decent living and to give back to building community. That's just so important. So you got to see me with my sisters. One of them, we were out in the field. I was like,
Hmm.
whew, I don't think child labor laws apply.
Oh my goodness.
It certainly it gave me the capacity to be able to serve 100 counties, because everyone will tell you about me. They're like, girl, you go all the time. I
Mhm.
had one of the largest geographical districts when I served in the state senate, but I always made sure my constituents saw me. And, I just pick a week, and so I would visit when I was representing 8 counties. 2 days a week, I was in 2 counties. And so I did that
Mhm.
so they would see me every month. I would give regular updates because I believe in accountability. And
Mhm.
so those are some of the pictures that you saw.
That is just beautiful. I'm going to tell you what I've learned about you, Erica. I
What?
have learned that when you walk in the room, you will speak for Black, you will speak for Brown, you will speak for male, you will speak for female, you will speak for all the voices that have been named and unnamed because you have the heart to do so.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, I appreciate that. That is
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's been wonderful having you here. Do you have any last words that you want to share with the family?
just for things. We hope that you will join our movement. It's not a campaign. We are running a movement. It's a moral movement. It's a movement for justice and equity. So you can text join to 51550 That's how you can reach us and get updates on the campaign. Please follow us, www.ericaforus.com. I'm truly one of us for all of us. I'm one of us who's going to fight for us. And follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Follow us on our social medias at Erica for US Sin. And we're so thankful for you. If you can donate, I would love for you to donate. People say, I don't have a lot of money. Well, don't give me a lot of money. But if all of us put some money together, we can change the trajectory of this nation and work and send someone who will fight for your voices and values, take you to Washington, D.C., and build back better with a more just society. Thank you
All
so much.
right. Excellent. Bye bye for now. I'm going to get her
Bye
to
bye.
come back. Bye
Okay.
bye.